Oh, hello! I come to you today from a different angle of my office, which is something you guys don't usually see, and this is part of why it's over here where you guys can't see, is that this is what I refer to as my pile of shame, and it's basically books that I pre-ordered or were sent to me, I should say. Some of these were unsolicited sends from publishers, so they are less shameful, but basically these are books that I got right when they came out, but I have not yet read. And the reason I think of this as my pile of shame is that if I was excited enough about it to pre-order it, why have I not yet read it? So, in fairness to me, this through here are things that I did not specifically buy on the day they came out. They were new releases that were sent to me without me asking for them. So I kept them because I'm still interested in them, but I don't have as much shame associated with them because I would like to get to them, but at least I didn't ask for them. But this, and then this whole cubby are all things I got right when they came out that I have not yet read and that I want to read. The reason I got them was because I want to read them. So this is I did this last year and I found it helpful to get some momentum to work on my pile of shame. We're gonna do a little mood reading project from these books so that I can make room for new books to add, for new pre-orders that I've not yet read to come in. Hey, in my defense, on the day I'm filming this clip, yesterday, I received and read a pre-order on the day that I got it. So, sometimes I do read books when I first get them, okay? Like, it does happen, but some of them it just builds up. You know how it is. Some of these have been here for a while and some of these are newer, but anyway, let's zoom in, shall we? And I can show you more specifically what is on here and talk about some of the ones that I'm thinking might be good candidates for this project. Okay, so one thing you will notice as we are looking at this pile of shame is that there's a lot of YA in this. I think it's because YA books, when they are first sold, tend to be less expensive, so it feels less risky, or it feels like less of a commitment to pre-order them because they're not as pricey as adult titles. But you will see I also have a little book of the month pile of shame. So that's a whole section. And then, yeah, there's a lot of YA in here. So ones that are kind of standing out to me as potentially good candidates. Well, these are two book of the months that have been on, also The Beautiful. These three have all been on for a very long time. I feel like they need to get read. I am intrigued by Katherine House, so I started this and then just totally lost momentum on it. So this might be a good candidate as kind of shit or get off the pot, either read it or don't. I'm really excited about Pride and Premeditation, and there is a sequel coming out, so maybe I should read this so that I know if I want to read the sequel. Let's see, I mean, White Smoke got a lot of hype last year. I really want to get to this new Riordan one. I'm very excited about it, I just haven't made time for it. And then I remember Where Dreams Descend has been on here for a long time. I want to get to Blood Like Magic because, again, it has a sequel. Also, I've met the author. I was on a panel with her and she is absolutely lovely. So I would really like to get to this and get hyped for the sequel. And then up here, these are less well... I was about to say these are less egregious. This is the most egregious one on the whole thing because this is the third book in the Heartstone trilogy, and I keep meaning to read Dragon Shadow, which is the second book, and that's not even on this right now because it's on my imminent TBR shelf in my bedroom. So really, we should make at least Dragon Shadow a priority so that I at least am able to read this one. Good Lord. But okay, so these are the main ones we're looking at. Like I said, I do have, trying to get you an angle here. These are all ones that the publisher sent me that I didn't necessarily specifically ask for. So I would like to get them because they do sound interesting to me. I wouldn't have kept them if I didn't think they sounded interesting, but I just haven't gotten to them yet. So those ones are all possibilities, but I think we'll probably stick to this for the most part. So anyway, so this is what we're going to be mood reading for, my pile of shame. And I'm hoping we can get at least 4 of these read, if not 5, so that I have space for other pre-orders as they come in. Okay, so that's what we're working with right now. So I was in the mood for something light and fluffy because I've just finished 2 very intense, very good nonfiction picks back to back. And I was going to go look on my Kindle for something just kind of fun, rom-com-y. And then I remembered that one of the books on my pile of shame fit this bill. So we're going to go with The Boyfriend Project by Farah Rochon. And I've been meaning to read this for a couple of years now. I was really excited about this when this was first coming out. I did hear kind of mixed things once it actually came out, which I think sort of dampened some of my enthusiasm for it, but I think this should be a fun, quick read, and it will make me feel accomplished to read it from my pile of shame, so that is a win if nothing else. Okay, so I finished this up. It was pretty easy to get through, though chunkier than I thought it was going to be. I have mixed thoughts on this because on the one hand, I really liked our main character, Samaya. She was strong and I felt like she made decisions that made sense, which is not always true in a rom-com. I really liked her relationship with her sister and with her 2 friends. So I don't know if I mentioned this, but the setup for this is sort of a John Tucker Must Die-esque trope, but not really because they're not plotting to take some guy down, but they all do. This friend group kind of comes together or is formed because they realize one dude is seeing all of them and it goes viral in this moment. I will say this already feels a little bit dated because I think if a moment like this were to go viral, it would be more on TikTok than YouTube at this point. But anyway, so they all find out this one guy is kind of playing them. They start being friends and they make a pact that they're going to start investing in themselves rather than men. But then Samaya meets the cute new guy at work, but the cute new guy at work, who she is fighting feelings for, is also an undercover agent for basically the FBI. So that's kind of the setup of like, she's not supposed to be dating anybody, but she's drawn to this guy, and this guy has sort of a big secret he's keeping from her. So I just don't feel like the pieces really fully came together for this one. This made me be able to identify, switching arms here real quick, this did make me able to identify that something that book rom-coms do sometimes, and it's really hard to describe what this is, but they have dialogue and scene scenarios that would work much better in a movie rom-com than a book one. In the book, it comes off more contrived versus if it's in a movie, some of the acting can kind of like carry it through or kind of like convey it to the audience. And I think that this is one of those. The romance, I bet if it was a really charismatic comedic actress and a good looking comedic actor, they could probably sell me on it. But in the book, the romance, the chemistry just wasn't there. So while there were things that I thought were interesting in this, I think that it didn't really come together as a romance. So I think I'm gonna give it like 3 stars. It was fine. Not as good as I'd hoped. And I can see why this got mixed reviews now, because like there are definitely things to like. Like I could see a world where somebody would read this and really enjoy it, but for me, not as strong. So I'm a little bit bummed that I didn't like it more, but I have to say I'm actually extremely happy that I finally read this because I've been meaning to read it for a couple of years and it's just been sort of sitting there. So I'm glad that I finally picked it up. If you're looking for a rom-com, if you're looking for a strong group of female friends in a rom-com, or they're working at this tech company, so if you're interested in that as a setting, I definitely think that there are things to like in this. It just didn't end up being a favorite for me. So, first one down, but progress. The next time I have an opportunity to mood read, I'll check back in with you guys and let you know what I pick. Okay, so, we've been doing a launch for my work, and that has been so much fun, let me tell you. But I'm finally getting a break, so I have decided I'm going to start Pride and Premeditation on my lunch break because it's a YA mystery based on Pride and Prejudice, which just sounds lovely. So this is the next pick, so I'll check in with you guys this evening once I've made some progress on it. All right, so I have made pretty good progress on this. I think I've got about 100 pages left. Yeah, about 100 pages left. So this is interesting because I thought this was a modern Pride and Prejudice retelling, but like a YA mystery thriller version of it. That's not really what this is. This is a YA mystery thriller, Pride and Prejudice retelling, but in the Regency. Like, I think that this is meant to be in the Regency. I wouldn't say that it captures... I wouldn't say that it's overly faithful to the vibe of the period. If it was going for historical verisimilitude, I would say that that's minimally successful, but it's fun. So basically the setup for this is, you can tell how much I actually looked up about this. I just saw Pride and Premeditation and was like, oh, YA Pride and Prejudice mystery? Sold. So Lizzie, in this version, Mr. Bennet is the head solicitor at Longbourn & Sons, which is a law firm. But because he has no sons, Mr. Collins, who is like his junior partner, is the heir apparent, the solicitor who is probably going to take over the firm from him whenever he dies or retires. But Lizzie Bennet really would like to be a barrister, and she's trying to convince her dad that she should come into the business with him. Cut to, Charles Bingley is accused of killing his brother-in-law, Mr. Hurst. Lizzie is going to use that case as an opportunity to prove to Mr. Bennet that she should be able to be a barrister. Her mom wants her to just like marry a barrister, but she wants to prove that she could just be one. And lo and behold, Mr. Bingley is being represented by his friend, Mr. Darcy, who is an aspiring lawyer at Pemberley and Associates, and things progress from there. So if you like Pride and Prejudice, this is just fun because like you get all of the characters and you get the same time period, ? You get some of the same like kind of set pieces and plot beats that you get in Pride and Prejudice, but there's a murder mystery. And it's YA, so it's, you know, younger characters than what we have in Pride and Prejudice. But I think part of the tension here is that even though they're younger in this time period, especially for the aristocracy or sort of the landed gentry, they tended to get married pretty young. So do you know what I mean? Like they're not teens in the same way that teens today are in terms of societal expectations. So I don't know that this is like the most successful thing, but it's fun. Like I'm having fun with it. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a less good version of that Y.S. Lee historical mystery series. I forget what it's called, but it's really, really fun. I really recommend that. It's been a while since I've read that, but that whole series was really fun. And this one I would say is not as good, but it has some of the same vibes, and yeah, it's just sort of lighthearted and fun. So, you know, after a very ongoingly brutal day at work is just the gift that keeps on giving here in the last few months. But after a long day of being on war rooms and, you know, trying not to say I told you so to people, this was fun. This is like a fun little way to wrap up my day. So I think I'm actually going to go get in my gym jams and finish reading this in bed. Hopefully when the kitties see that I have gotten in bed, they will come snuggle with me. Right now they are... Ooh, can you see him? There's Hastings on his little cushion, and Marple is on her ottoman. So hopefully when they see that I have moved to the bedroom, they will follow for some snuggles and reading time. So I'll check back in when I'm done. Alrighty, so I did go ahead and polish this off this evening, and this is very charming. I'm between a 3 to 3.5. It's either like a weak 3.5 or a very strong 3. The thing that I love about this is what it does with the Catherine de Bourgh and Collins characters. Like that alone, I feel like probably justifies pushing it up to a 3.5, but I don't know. The fact that it's set in the Regency, I just have questions about. Like, I just don't know that that was the right choice. I don't know. That's kind of like where my confliction here is, but it's very sweet, and like I like how the Darcy and Elizabeth relationship develops. It's very cute. I think that there's going to be more in this series, but the way this ends, I think, like is fine for a standalone, which is good because I don't think I'll continue in the series. But yeah, I mean, you know, fucking Wickham is gonna Wickham, Mrs. Bennet's gonna Mrs. Bennet. Like, this is very cozy and very just light, fluffy fun. Yeah, I mean, I think that it could be, as a YA book, for YA actually aimed at young readers or like at teens. I like that this is a pretty good introduction to some of the beats that you might see in a historical type mystery. And I also appreciate that it's an actual mystery and not a mystery thriller. So I just like a Pride and Prejudice retelling, and it made me happy. But yeah, maybe I will parlay this retelling energy into reading Dragon Shadow. Maybe? Could be? Are we gonna do it, guys? Are we finally gonna read this? Maybe. Let's see how tomorrow goes and how much energy I have, because that one's gonna be a little harder to get through. Harder. It's not as sort of light and ephemeral. It's a better retelling, basically, so I assume it will take a little bit more thought to get into, and brain cells are not thick on the ground here after the grueling work stuff that's been going on. So let's see how I'm feeling, but maybe we're finally gonna do it. If nothing else, we can thank this for kind of revving my retelling engines for that. Okay, pals, it is happening. Work today. It was already kind of gonna be a shit show, but then I also got sad news about roles in the org that is making me sad and existential. So I need just a lovely comfort read. And I feel like Dragon Shadow, which is the second book in the Heartstone trilogy by L. Catherine White, is the right book for this. So this is in my pile of shame. This is maybe my most shameful book in my pile of shame, because I have been really wanting to finish this trilogy, and yet I keep putting it off for reasons unknown. But it was all coming together for today when I need a good comfort read for this to be here for me. So basically this series is fantasy romance, and it's basically ye fantasy version of Pride and Prejudice. So it's also a nice continuation of Pride and Premeditation, a different kind of retelling, this time in a fantasy world. Darcy is a legendary dragon rider from this prestigious dragon riding family, and Lizzie is a healer who also can kick ass sometimes. So at the very end of the last book, the first book follows Pride and Prejudice. You could read Heartstone just as a standalone. It's pretty much the same overall story arc. This book picks up right after they get married. So I'm excited. It's happening. Finally. Aren't you proud? I know I am. Okay, I have made some good progress on this, actually. I am more than halfway done, and we're finally getting to the destination, or where I think the meat of the action of this book will take place. I say that. It's not as if there has not been quite a bit of action up till this point, but it's been, let's say, meandering. This is not as good as Heartstone. I kind of figured that would be the case, but it is fun getting back into this world. I really like the fantasy setting of this particular series. It's a nice blend of kind of earthier magic is what I want to say. It's got a lot of different kind of beasties than we often see in fantasy books, and I really like the juxtaposition of Eliza, who's the Lizzie character, coming from a tradition of respecting kind of more humble magic of the world, versus the Darcy character, Alistair, comes from sort of this noble lineage of dragon riders and more violent magic, basically. Learning from each other, they're dealing with the fallout of the first book, because in the first book there was this big awakening of all of these evil beasties coming out to terrorize ye fantasy version of England that's called Arl in this book. Yeah, I think that this is building to something interesting. I'm guessing that by the time I get to the end of this trilogy, I will think it should have been a duology. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of buildup in this, and they're on a road trip. Basically, the setup for this is that they've been contracted to come help this lord who's in the far north of their country, and some really fucked up shit is going on, and he's like, hey, I don't know what's happening, but this is not good. Can you come help? And so they're on their way to go help. The first 60 pages was just them at their estate, getting ready for that journey, wrapping up their honeymoon. And now that they're actually on their way and they just are now arriving, there's been a lot of sort of road trip action stuff happening. So I'm excited to see, where it actually ends up going. It's just a lot of buildup. And I don't know, I'm not sure yet that the buildup will have really been worth it by the time we get to the end of this particular book. But I am enjoying seeing the character development. I'm enjoying seeing the Darcy character sort of deal with some of the ramifications of what happened in the last book. I don't want to give spoilers for it, so I guess I'll just leave it there. But anyway, I don't don't know if I'll totally finish this tonight, but I should be able to finish this tomorrow if nothing else. I'm waiting for my pajamas to come out of the dryer so that I can curl up in bed. And yeah, I'll check in with you guys whenever I'm actually done. I'm just so excited. I mean, I am really just enjoying spending time in this world again, time with these characters. This is definitely hitting the spot in terms of just sort of a comfort read, which I need at the end of a very trying day. So this is definitely hitting the spot. And look who I have with me. Hi, sweet girl. Yeah. Okay, good morning. I'm about to join a call for work, but I did wake up early because, work has stressed me out the last couple of weeks and I was thinking about it. So I woke up early and did finish this off, and I actually really did like this book quite a bit. Not as good as the first one, unquestionably, and this is definitely like a side quest. So yeah, I don't know. When I finish the trilogy, I'll let you know if I feel like it should have been a duology. I'm suspecting that's how I'm gonna feel. But I really liked the world continuation in this, and basically the first half of it is sort of like a kind of like a road trip side questy type vibe, and then the back half of it is kind of like a haunted house or like a mystery kind of vibe to it. So I liked the plot stuff going on. I thought that there was some interesting continuation of the relationship between Eliza and Alistair in this one. Yeah, I don't think it was perfect, but it put a smile on my face. I really like this world. I really like these characters, and I'm glad that I finally read it because I've been putting it off for so long. I'm tempted to go ahead and read the final one, which possibly would be responsible so that I can actually just finish the goddamn thing, but we'll see. So I did enjoy this. I would give it, I think the ending, I don't know, the pacing of this I think threw me off a little bit, so I don't feel like I can give it a full 4 stars, but it's a very strong 3.5 star. And yeah, definitely my favorite thing I've read so far in this Pile of Shame experiment. I also got an arc of Fevered Star yesterday from Rebecca Roanhorse, which is really what I want to read. I'm going to hold off until the weekend so that I can focus on it, which means that I have probably 2-ish more books that I can get to before that. So this was definitely a success. Hurrah. Glad to have finally read this and that I ended up enjoying it. We will call that a win all around. Alrighty, so it's been another long day. I remembered that one of the books in my pile of shame was Katherine House, which I had already read some of and had not totally known what to think of it at the time and if I was liking it or not. So I took a step back from it and then just never re-picked it back up. But I actually think that worked to my favor with this book because I came to it with fresh expectations and a lot of information from people about what to expect. So I was reading it in sort of little dribs and drabs today, and my best friend is staying with me tonight, so I knew I wasn't gonna have a ton of time to read, so this ended up being just the right amount of book. Thoughts on this? I think that if you go into this expecting a thriller, which is what I had originally expected based on the way it was pitched, I think you will be disappointed because it's not a thriller really at all. I think that people should go into this expecting atmospheric horror. And for that, I think it's actually really pretty good. It's a lot of vibes, man. It's a lot of atmosphere, it's a lot of vibes. And I think there's something that it's trying to say, possibly about privilege. Do you know what book this actually reminds me quite a bit of is Madam by Phoebe Wynne, which also did not get great reviews, but that I also had a pretty similar response to, which is I don't know that I loved this, but I respect what it was trying to do. I think that it's a well done version of what it is. And not probably my favorite, but I was actually pretty surprised at how much I like this. So the setup for this is that Katherine House is sort of this elite college, and it's like a weird or unusual college where you basically agree to go hole up in the middle of nowhere for 3 years, and you can't have any access to the outside world, no phones, no nothing, no cameras, nothing. And you emerge from your time with an incredibly prestigious degree, and you can pretty much like name what you want to do after that. And Inez is our main character. I think, if I'm remembering rightly, one of the criticisms I've seen is that she's very passive, which I do think is true in some ways, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, I feel like she has her moments. I wouldn't say she's a super likable main character. That's fine by me. I don't really need my characters to be super likable for this kind of book. And I don't know. I feel like that this was a pretty good version of what it was. I wouldn't say it's a personal favorite, but I think because I'd had the right expectations set and because I took a break when I first hit a wall with it a little bit, it actually went better than I expected. Yeah, actually, the more I talk about this, the more I'm like, did I kind of like this? I think I kind of like this. I'd say I'm somewhere between a 3 and a 3.5. It's definitely, I feel like that this is definitely a piece of art. I really like the writing, and I think it's trying to do something, and whether or not I loved what it was trying to do, not sure, but I respect it. I respect this book. So, I think, for making me think a little bit and, just being a little bit outside of my normal comfort zone, I appreciate this book. So I'm glad I finally read it and can finally have an opinion about it. I do think that if you liked this book, I would recommend Madam. Just know that both of them are people either like them or hate them. And Madam you may not like, but that would be my closest read alike for this. Anyway, another book off of my pile of shame. So let's definitely call that a win at least. All right, it is the next day, and I had a doctor's appointment this morning, so I was dipping out of work, and while I was waiting for my appointment, I read the first chapter of White Smoke. So the reason I picked this up is because I think it is also kind of a haunted house type story, and that's not exactly what Katherine House is, but it's not that in some ways, and also because this has been very polarizing. Some people really love this, some people really hate it, and Katherine House was also quite polarizing, so I figured, while I'm in the mood to have hot takes, let's just keep this energy going. So far intrigued. The opening, well, I won't, I gotta go make some food while I have a chance here, but the opening page is from the point of view of the house, so I thought that was kind of a cool way to set the mood. So I don't know, so far, don't have a lot of thoughts, but we'll see if I end up controversially loving this, controversially hating it, or controversially having no opinion about it, or like a neutral opinion about it. So I'll check back in when I've made some more progress. Well, howdy. I am about a little over halfway. I think I'm on page 204, and it's like 370 pages, so more than halfway. How do I feel about this so far? Well, for one, this is certainly not thriller. I think that's kind of how it was sold to me. And it is not thriller, it is a horror novel. You know what? We could say that this is very similar to Katherine House, that I think if you went into it expecting a thriller, you would be disappointed. This is definitely horror, and it's very slow burn. Probably too slow for my liking so far. Okay, so setup for this is Marigold is our main character. She goes by Mary, and she has some mental health issues that she has been institutionalized for in the past for treatment, and so she has a lot of different kind of coping mechanisms for that. So that's kind of a big part of the experience of being in her perspective. But she, her mom, her stepdad, and then her stepsister and her brother moving to this town, and they're staying in this house that they get to live in for free as a part of this sort of bringing life back into this town effort. And the house is hella creepy. It's like a haunted house story. Now, I remembered once I started reading this and I was like, oh yeah, what is this? It's described as, I've seen this pitched as Get Out meets The Haunting of Hill House. I'm assuming the Get Out part is going to have something to do with racism. I don't feel like I really see that yet. The Haunting of Hill House, I mean, in the sense that it's a haunted house, yeah. I like it when this book has like haunted moments. So for instance, the chapter I just read, one of Mary's coping strategies is that she has all these alarms on her phone to remind her to do things. And like, she starts getting all of these alarms of like, where's your dog? Have you looked under your bed? Like, that she didn't put there. And then her stepsister Piper, who is a brat and a half, has this imaginary friend named Ms. Sugar, who is in the house, allegedly. I think we're meant to think of that as a ghost, and she says Miss Sugar is the one who did the alarms, not her. So there's also that. There's sort of like a new kid in town type element here because she is the new kid in town, so she's like making new friends-ish. Yeah, I don't know. I like the actual writing. I don't know that I'm loving the story or the characters. I'll stay tuned because maybe like the themes that it ends up getting into are going to be interesting. But for now, I'm kind of so-so on this, but it's a quick read. Even though it feels kind of slow paced, I'm getting through it pretty quickly, but don't know that I'm super entertained by it. So I don't know, sometimes with horror, you kind of have to wait to the back half for things to pay off. So I'm hoping that that's what the case here will be. But I can definitely see why this is divisive because I thought that this was like mystery thriller, and I would say that's not the case. And so if a lot of people went into this expecting that, I could see how people would get disappointed. But now that I have the right expectations fully for this, we'll see how I do. And like I said, I'm kind of hoping this is going to pick up more in the back half because yeah, with horror, that often can be the case of it just sort of builds and builds and then it's like, holy shit, everything's going on. Hopefully that's what's going to happen. So I don't know, we'll see. I will say that she is obsessed with bed bugs, and that is like, I don't enjoy that. Tiffany D. Jackson does a good job of communicating the ick factor of that, so good job there, but ugh. Ugh. Good morning, my beautiful, beautiful, lovely people. It is finally Friday. I am making myself some coffee, and oh my gosh, I have rarely been this excited for a weekend. It has been a torturous week. If you can't tell from my vlogs, things at work are just very stressful these days, which, you know, is great for my autoimmune disease. Loving that. And, you know, that's why they pay me the big bucks. Coffee smells so good. This is the Bones coffee, which Leanna put me on, and it's delicious. This is the Highland Grog. Okay, so I did finish White Smoke last night. Fun story. I got in bed to read and I fell asleep a little bit before 9. I woke up a little bit before 1 and couldn't go back to sleep. So then I read for 2 more hours and, you know, finished this off. So thoughts. Pretty mixed on this one, gotta be honest. Yeah, I don't quite, okay, let's process this together. It's hard because Tiffany Jackson's actual writing, I quite like. Her actual prose and her approach to character building and kind of her authorial posture in the text is all stuff that I like. However, I just don't think I love the story because there are definitely moments I really enjoy. Like I think I checked in with you guys right after the alarm scene, which I thought was particularly just like what I wanted from the book. But I really didn't like the way it ended in terms of the actual plot. I did like the resolution between Mary and Piper, like their journeys as stepsisters. I liked that. I didn't like the way the plot ended. So I don't know. I'm pretty mixed on this. I'm somewhere between a 2.5 and a 3. Maybe controversially, I actually liked Katherine House quite a bit better than this. But yeah, this one, it didn't totally do it for me. I don't know, I'll think about it. I'm gonna go write a Goodreads review here in a minute, but yeah, this one wasn't my fave, gotta be honest. So, am I gonna read another book for this vlog? You know, I may not, actually. We've read 5 books, I feel like that's pretty good, and I know that this weekend I am going to hunker down and binge Fevered Star because we had an ice storm last night, so I will not be able to leave the house probably at all, but definitely not until Sunday. And so I think that's gonna be my weekend reading, so I feel like I need to kind of give myself some space to clear the decks and kind of like get my body ready for that book. So yeah, this might actually, knocked over the coffee, that would have been bad. This might be my last book. Let's meet back when I'm done with work for the day because I feel like we actually had some pretty interesting results from this because I think the highest rating I gave to any of these is a 3.5. So let's meet back and talk about that and wish me luck. Another day of very shouty meetings with a lot of very stressed out people. Alrighty, so here is my stack of books that I read. Order of enjoyment from least to greatest. What is interesting is that this entire stack got 3 stars, with the exception of this, which got 3.5, which I'm not sure we've ever had a project where that was the outcome, that they were all just kind of fine to me. So this might be a good moment for us to just talk about what I see as part of the value of a 3-star book. To me, I give 3 stars when I feel like something is a B, where it's fine. It's not particularly remarkable or particularly extra enjoyable to me. So sometimes that is weighted more towards my enjoyment. Sometimes it's weighted more towards how special I think something is. But it doesn't mean I had a terrible time in a book if I give it 3 stars. It just means that it's not like a standout. It's not something that is particularly either memorable or particularly like my thing. I don't know. It's interesting because I think the perception is if you give something 3 stars, it wasn't worth your time. And I just don't feel like that's the case because if I look back on the last week I had of reading, I think of it as like, yeah, it was a pretty good week of reading. I got to a lot of books that I've been meaning to get to, so I feel good about making progress on moving books in and out of my TBR. I particularly am very proud of finally reading Dragon Shadow, and frankly, I'm hoping that I'm gonna read Flamebringer pretty soon now because this reminded me that I really like this series, and now that I've got a little momentum, hopefully I'll finish it off. So I had a pretty good time overall. These may not be the most memorable books I've read in the last year, but not all reading for me is about a 5-star amazing experience, especially when you're like me and your entertainment primarily comes from reading. The same way that I'm not gonna love every episode of a show that I enjoy, or I'm not gonna love every movie I see, I still don't necessarily regret seeing them. It's just a part of how I'm entertaining and relaxing in my downtime. So because reading is like really my primary media consumption outside of like YouTube and TikTok, not everything needs to be a 5-star for me. Anyway, sorry. I felt like this was a good time to have that discussion because I don't know, I feel like 3 stars sometimes gets a bad rap. Now, that being said, of these 4 that I gave 3 stars to, I would say in terms of enjoyment, this is the one that I had the best time in for sure. I think as a book though, is like not the best executed version of what it is. So like this is one where I probably would give it like a 4 for entertainment, but maybe like a 2.5 for quality. Whereas something like Katherine House, I would give this a 4 for quality, but a 2 for entertainment. So they're kind of opposite in that respect. And then these two are much more like they're borderline 2.5s. Because I do have some like problems with them, but I also have strong enough redeeming things that I feel like 2.5 doesn't feel accurate. So in this one, I did have a good level of enjoyment in this while I was reading it. So while I think some of its technical execution points may be a little weaker, I had a decent enough time reading it. Whereas this one I felt like, I guess these are kind of parallel. This one I felt like the quality of the writing was really nice, and I had some admiration for sort of the project of the book, but I was not into the ending at all, and I didn't have a ton of entertainment in it relative to what I was hoping to have. So these are all 3 stars. These are both pretty solid 3s, maybe on a different day I could have given these 3.5. These are a little weaker 3s, and maybe on a different day I would have given this a 2.5. But I think all of these feel good. I feel good calling all of these Bs. Then, when we come to Dragon Shadow, this is a good example where, though I definitely have some critiques of the technical aspects of this book in terms of it did feel a little meandery. I definitely feel like there's the two kind of halves of the book feel quite different in their tone in a way that probably is not the most technically proficient. But because I just like this kind of story, I was highly entertained and engaged by it. It doesn't weight it down as much. So in this one, this is probably a scenario where I would give my enjoyment of this like a very solid 4 stars. And then I would give the execution parts of it more like a 3 to 3.5. So I think overall a 3.5 feels right. Would say this is definitely my favorite, but I would give it 3.5, and that's a B+. So does this tell me anything about my pile of shame? Maybe I instinctually know some of these things are not going to be ones I end up loving. I will say, in the case of, yes, actually all 4 of the ones I ended up giving 3 stars to, I was excited about them, and then once other people started reading them, I got less excited about them, which I think is part of why they ended up lingering for a while on my TBR. And in all 4 of these cases, I can see why there would be mixed responses or mixed reviews. So I guess maybe I just happened to pick some books that I was in the mood for that were a little more controversial, and maybe part of the reason why things linger sometimes on my TBR, even if I've pre-ordered them and I'm sort of like initially excited for them, is once I start actually seeing kind of feedback on how they are, maybe I get less excited. I don't know, maybe that's my takeaway from this round of my pile of shame. But all that being said, my chatty ass should probably let you guys go. Let me know what you thought of any of these books. Let me know if you liked this vlog idea. I remember you guys liking it last year, so hopefully you enjoyed this round of it. And yeah, I think that will do it for me for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. Oh, and I also, since I'm wearing it, I also have a link to my merch, and this is some Hastings and Marple merch. If you've enjoyed their adorable faces throughout the video, you can check that out. Isn't that right, buddy? He's looking at me like he knows I'm talking about him. Yeah, anyway, sorry. I'll let you go. Have a great day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye! See? Kitty.